failure isn't failure if you deal with it in the right way. In fact, it is your reactions to all the things happening in the world outside that determine your level of happiness and peace. Hello everyone, I'm Mannsi Agrawal and you're watching If I Had Not Failed on News 24. We're coming to you straight from Hotel Yakinyati today. My guest today wears many hats. He is extremely educated. He's a reputed businessman, a former member of parliament, and most importantly, an avid student of Vipassana. I want to understand from him how his tryst with spirituality has given him a deeper understanding of the contemporary modern world and his own business ventures. Who better to talk to about meditation and mindfulness than Dr. Roop Jyoti? Namaste, sir. Thank you so much for being here. It really means a lot to me that you agreed to spend your time with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Sir, my first question to you, without any ado, is what do you consider your greatest failure and why?
Actually, it's a point of view. I don't look at things, events in life like that, because you do things in life to achieve something, to get some results, and those outcomes or results, don't come, And if you get upset and you get distressed and you say that, oh, terrible, it's all I failed and this, I think that is not the right way of looking at things, It's, you do that because you have attachment to the result, to the outcome, right? And in our lives, all our misery, suffering is because of our attachments, right? So if you are attached to the outcome of the action or effort you are taking, then you see it as a failure, or you see it, at some misery or suffering, right? So what you have to realize that you have done your effort, right? Right effort, right action, right? Outcome, result is not up to you, right? It's an outcome. It's a factor of so many other things, which you may have control or you may not have control, right? As you know, I'm a student of Vipassana and a follower of Buddha, right? So, as Buddha says that, everything that happens in our life is a consequence of our own past deeds, our deeds, right? He says, Kamma Sakha Bhikkhave, Kamma Dayada, Kamma Yoni, Kamma Bandhu, Kamma Patisarnam, Yam Kammam Karoti, Papas Va Kalyanam, Tassa Dayada Bhavanti. That means, whatever deeds you have done in the past, if you have done good deeds, bad deeds, wholesome deeds, unwholesome deeds, the results are going to come. This is a matter of time, when as if you have sown a seed, right? It takes time to ripen, right? Give you fruits with the results, right? If you have sown a good seed, you get a good result. If you have, unfortunately, if out of your ignorance or you have sown a bad seed, then you get a bad result, right? So therefore, if you see something as a failure, but on the other hand, you say that, okay, I'm not going to attach to the outcome. So I'm just going to say that, okay, this didn't work out, right? And let's try it another way, right? Just maybe you want to check your actions, and say that, okay, this and this did, everything was correct, but still the outcome was not right. So that means something else, It's that maybe a vipak of your karma, the consequence of your some past deed, it has to come at that time, and it came as a failure for that, or that your effort didn't succeed, right? So then you said, okay, I'm going to try it again, right? It happens in life, everybody, right? If you raise a son, right, and you want the son to be I'm a businessman, I think you are also in the business family. You want the son to be a businessman, right? And he ends up being a cricketer or a musician, and you said, oh, what is it? No, that is because your attachment to your result. You want your son to become something, and he didn't become, right? So that's why you feel suffering, right? You feel miserable, right? You feel that you have failed. No, that is not the right thing. So you say that I have done my right things, but if you say that, okay, but if you want any events, saying that what are the things, which you could have done differently, or what you wanted a proper outcome, I mean, you ask this question all of a sudden, so I have to, go through my mind, for all these so many years, of my life, But the recent ones, I would say that, we constructed a crematorium, at Karndeep. There's a crematorium. That Karndeep is our community, area. And that's a special kind of a crematorium. You know, it's energy saving, it's pollution free, and it's time saving, and it's good in all ways. You know, so there are 3 different places. You know, there where you can put this. So we selected the second one, and we did one, and then we wanted to do the next one because everybody said it's so good. Now do the next one. Unfortunately, the next one was sort of occupied or captured by another Guti. You know, and they wouldn't let us do. You know. So for the last, I think 3-4 years, I've been trying, to convince them, allow it, but they want to do it one way. So I feel that is something, I failed, if it had done, then because always, there's demand, because people, one body comes and then sometimes the next one comes and then they have to go elsewhere or they have to do it in another way. So everybody is demanding that we should have 2, in that place, so that is something, Other things like, we one of the biggest activities in a business activity I undertook was a spinning mill, right? Spinning mill by the name of Jyoti spinning mill, right? It was the first spinning mill in the private sector in Nepal. Previous one was Budrol spinning, which had failed. And this one was quite a big project, so we had to bring in, Asian Development Bank, private sector lending after the Asian Development Bank, and there were a lot of things missing. There was no framework agreement in Nepal, to allow ADB to invest in private sector, so we had to create all that. With a lot of preparations, a lot of analysis. We did our own analysis, because it was a big project for my family, and then ADB did their own analysis, the team, because they also wanted to be sure about it, So, we are very good right from the beginning because, within 2 months, we were running at 100% capacity, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, and like that, So, it was a good project, should have succeeded, brought the results, Unfortunately, down the line, after 1.5 years, government suddenly decided to allow import of this yarn, from India in dollars, right? That was a terrible decision for us, because Indian spinning mills cannot compete with their own dollar prices, right? So how can we compete in Nepal, right? So that was a big setback for the spinning mill. And then after a year or so, then the load shedding came, right? So in the beginning, it was 8 hours per day. We were just about breaking even, surviving with the 24 hours every day, 7 days a week, and we had to curtail our production by 8 hours. We couldn't handle it. So we had to stop that mill and we had to liquidate it. But again, as I said, we said that we liquidate this mill because it's a private sector. ADB there were nearly 6,000 shareholders. It was a public shareholding, and we couldn't do a lot of things. We didn't have the freedom to do it. So we had to convert it into a private company, right? So we made that into a private company and started again, but the load shedding became so much, that for another 2-3 years, we had planned to do that in 6 months. It took 3 years, right, to do it. And by the time we had sort of suffered a lot of losses, a lot of interest costs, and but fortunately that mill is still there, and slowly it's coming back. It's reviving, and I think it'll be good. So that is how I look at things. So you say, what is a great failure? One, because I have so many activities in my life, so to pick one is, and also with a short notice, not so easy.
Great, sir. But it was wonderful to hear that you spoke about failures and you gave me 3 clear, distinct kind of ideas from 3 different fields and 3 aspects of your life. First, you started with spirituality, and then you went into work for the community or social impact that you're creating, and finally about yourself as an entrepreneur. And we're going to talk to you about each one of these aspects one by one. Let's start with spirituality and you, and about what spirituality teaches one about failure and how we can deal with the other things in our life based on what you learn. So you said that, failure is basically, it's going to hurt you if you're attached to the result. So you're talking about putting in all the effort and not being very attached to what you're going to get out of it. And that's what helps you sort of deal with that entire situation. How easy do you think, or how difficult do you think this is to implement in the real world where real actions have implications, not just in our own lives, but in other people's lives as well? Let's say as an entrepreneur, you have a spinning mill. For some reason, it doesn't do well. It could be a policy level thing or whatever it is. You understand that you cannot be too attached to the result and you're okay to deal with that. What about the stakeholders? What about the people who work there? How do you deal with a situation like this?
The problem is that, we do things, as a reaction, we don't always act. Many times we react, the story of this. Have you heard of the story of this mongoose and the mother, right? There was in the village, there was a lady, who had a pet mongoose, and she also had a very small child, So every day, she used to go to the field for the work, and she used to leave the child, home with the mongoose, right? So every day she come home, and one day when she came home, the mongoose came to the door, with blood in his mouth, right? So the mother, got really upset. She said, "Oh, this mongoose! I had thought that I had little fear, but I must have killed my child." So there was a stick lying, in the nearby. So he just took the stick and hit the mongoose and killed it. When she went inside, she saw there was a black snake lying next to the child, and it was the snake, that the mongoose had killed, right? So because of her reaction, if she had little presence of mind, she would have said, "Oh, let me see," and she would have looked inside and said, "Oh, this is the snake that was killed, not my child," then she would have not done such kind of a wrong, action, right? So that's why you should be able to keep your mind balanced and equanimous, right? How not to get upset in life, as I said, I'm a practitioner of Vipassana, right? Vipassana teaches you how not to get upset in life, how to maintain your balance of mind, how to maintain of calm, how to be able to have this presence of mind to say that, "Oh, let me see, what happened," right? So this is what happened, right? But unfortunately, that is not so easy because, we are slaves of our mind, The mind is driving us, We are not able to control our mind and we're not able to master our mind, right? So you have to have a technique, to learn how to master your mind. And our mind is also full of impurities, Throughout our life, you go on accumulating, fear, anger, animosity, greed, jealousy, and this affects the working of the mind, right? And we know how to clean our body, we know how to take a bath, we know how to clean our clothes also, right? But you have to clean your mind, right? And for that, there's a certain technique, and this is what is the Vipassana technique. This is the technique, which is taught, discovered by Buddha and taught by Buddha. This was the main part of his teaching, right? So by practicing this, one is that you learn how to keep your mind equanimous, balanced, how not to get it. And that happens, because you are getting rid of the impurities of the mind, right? As more and more impurities are eradicated from your mind becomes more calm and settled down and more peaceful, right? And then anything happens in the life, then you are able to face it, with balance of mind. You said, "Okay, let me see," right? But, people don't understand the importance of mind, right? They think that, it is the body action which is the most important, right? Or it is the action of the words, which is important, But, Buddha discovered that it is the action of the mind which is most important, And action of from the words, is as a child of the action of the mind, It starts first in the mind, right? And then it turns into your words or maybe action, So you should be able to control the mind first, right? And for this, this is the technique, offered. So this is what I've been practicing for a long time, and a lot of the people who have practiced, they have found the benefit, because it happens, that you are full of anger, right? So when a situation comes, then we are makes you angry, then with the force of anger stored inside you, that anger comes, right? And immediately, right? But if you have, it's just like, if you are carrying a tank full of petrol, right, inside, and somebody lights a fire, you are going to burst, right? But if you can empty the tank, right, then if somebody comes to the fire, then it will not burn you, not burn. And better that, if you can fill the tank with water, right, you can throw that water on the other person anger also will stop, right? So this is what this technique is all about, right? So to be able to do that is a great, benefit, in life, and also to be able to see that things which are happening in life, it's a consequence of my own past deeds, right? But past deeds, also means that it doesn't mean that it's very esoteric, something from fancy. Simple past deeds also, right? If you are crossing the road, right? You say that, "Oh, okay, I'm going to cross the road." It's what happens is my past deeds, right? And you don't look left and right and you cross it. You're going to get hurt. You're going to get killed also, right? But looking left and right also is a deed, right? Taking precaution while crossing the road, that is also a deed. So if you don't do that deed, or you eat whatever you want, and he says that it's, my illness or disease, only all my karma, it is a sankhara, it's past deeds, right? So that is not right, right? So you have to, every deed what you carry out, every action, that counts, right? Some count more, maybe some count less, So when you are careful about what deeds you are performing, right? When you know that, whatever deed you do, it's like sowing a seed, right? It's going to bring fruits later, right? So careful not to sow a seed of sorrow for the future, and then that will avoid the sorrow, in your life, right? And also if you realize that, okay, something happens, you might have read in the newspaper, I think a couple of years ago, I was in the police custody for a while, for 8-10 days, right? So at that time also, there was this guy, he had given money to somebody and he was trying to extort that money from me. And he said that, I have this power and that power, I'm going to put you behind bars. You have to pay me this much, that much, I said, nothing doing, this is not a deal with me. You have to, whoever you have dealt with, no. So I was in Singapore, Then I got calls, don't come, this all arrangements are being made to arrest you as soon as you land, I said, no, I'm going to come, if it happens, happens, Then, so I came and they, took me into custody, and I said, well, I have not done anything wrong, but if you put me in custody, okay, it must be some sankhara, sankhara means, a consequence of the past deed, right? It's just ripened, just it has to come, this way or that way. So let it come, if I get upset, I multiply it, right? So I just let it pass, So in the beginning, a lot of people also thought, Roop Jyoti must have done something wrong. That's why the police, took him in custody, right? But as the days passed, 6 days, 7 days, everybody realized, that it was a very wrong thing for the police to do. And even they were in trouble, they were thinking how to get out of this, right? So anyway, after 10 days, I came out as a hero. I said, these are other people, they were the people who were trying to do wrong, So that's why, so events that happens in life, if you realize that anything that happens in your life, it's a outcome of your own past deeds, right? And if you good deeds, then they come to help you, right? When you are in a suffering, you are in a misery, you have some very difficult situation, I've seen in my life, I've spent, many years, rather old, also. So that situation, all of a sudden, things happen, which you didn't expect, right? Then you realize that, okay, it must have been, some good deed that I've done, so that has come to me to help in the situation, right? So that's why the important thing is, that spirituality helps you to retain control of your mind and keep the balance of your mind, and gives you the courage, right, and motivation to do the right things, not worry about the results, because you can do a lot of things, to get a lot of money. Let's earn money by wrong means, right? You may get that money, but afterwards, that money is going to go away, right? If earned by wrong means, not going to stay with you, or you going to get another misery or suffering, another dukkha, coming in because you've done the wrong thing, right? So it's the action which is more important, the right action, and most important is that you have to keep your mind balanced so that you, don't take any, because all actions, as the children of the action of the mind, right? So this is what is important, and the spirituality which you talked about, the vipassana that I follow, helped me to see things, what that is happening in my life, so that I don't get upset unnecessarily, or if I get upset, it's a little bit for a short time, right? If I get angry also, it's a short time. Then I control myself, I don't feel sorry about things, and it helps, whoever practices this technique.
Right. Sir, you spoke about controlling your mind and making your mind more calm, yes, and being in a space where you are able to have more control over your mind. Does this also mean have control over your emotions? Could you just clear that? Is the emotional control what we're talking about?
Yes, definitely, right? You see, let me explain very briefly what this technique, right? It starts with the concentrating your mind, right? And you do the concentration by observing your breath, right? You observe your breath as it comes in, as it goes out, right? When you try it, you think it's nothing, but when you try it, you said that within 5-10 seconds, your mind goes away somewhere, because you are not in control of your mind, right? So gradually, you can focus on the mind for maybe 15 seconds, half a minute, 1 minute, 2 minutes, So after 3 days of practice, we expect that, that people can concentrate for 1 minute, without the mind going here and there, right? So if you have achieved that 1 minute, then you are ready to observe other things happening in your life, in your body, right? And then you find that in the body, there are vibrations, all the time, right? Vibrations are all the time. So as soon as some event happens, right, in outside, immediately the mind starts to react, and it passes judgment, right? So this, what has happened is good or it is bad, right? So if it says that it's good, right, then the vibrations which are in the body, they suddenly turn present, right? And if it says it's bad, then the vibrations turn unpresent, right? And then third part of the body, mind, it starts to react. And if it's present, it says, oh, it's terrible, it says, oh, it's wonderful, right? Then you have to react. If it says terrible, then you want to make it go away, right? If it says it's wonderful, you want to make it stay, Then that is what you develop, cravings and attachment, So this cravings and attachment is not actually towards something happening outward. It's towards your own sensations, right? So if you become capable of observing the sensations, right, then the nature of the sensation, that if you react, they multiply, right? But if you don't react and you say that, oh, okay, let me observe, then whatever time it has to stay, it stays, and then it passes away, right? And it's impermanent, right? And that is what is impermanent, taught by Buddha and preached by Buddha, right? Is the impermanence of the sensations which is happening, right? So if you happen, the sensation, and then you say, okay, let me see, then that sensation doesn't overpower you, right? So if you get angry, for instance, I give you an example, I mean, it's my own son, that when he was 14, he was studying in Kharchang, Darjeeling, and he came home for his long holiday, right? And he came to me and said that, I'll sit my Vipassana course. I said, you want to sit Vipassana course? He said, well, sooner or later you're going to ask me to sit this course, so might as well I have a holiday. So he sat the Vipassana course, and then after that he went to school, right? And after I went to school, he wrote a letter. What he had done was, during the holidays, in those days we had this cassette recorders, right? Cassette tape, right? So he had recorded all his favorite songs in that particular tape. And when he went to school, his best friend came in and said that, can I borrow your tape? He said yes, okay, take it. So after a couple of days, he asked, where is my tape? So he's not returning. So after a week, he said, what is it? I need my tape. So when he brought it, it was all mangled up. I think his tape recorder was bad, so it was mangled up. So he became very angry. He started shout at him, beat him up. All of a sudden, he realized that there was a intense sensation in his body, right? And because of his, just he had taken the course, he started observing the sensation, and quickly the sensation went away. Then he had this thought that, okay, this tape, I can go back and make another one when I go home. If I just, shout at my, best friend and, beat him up, then unnecessarily, we'll break a friendship, So he had that presence of mind, right? So like that, so in our emotions also, whenever there's an emotion, right? Suddenly if somebody has passed away, right? And then you feel like crying, right? Because sorrow, it's you're crying because of this sensation inside, right? So if you can observe the sensation, that sorrow is also slowly go away, right? So to be able to observe the sensation is a technique, is a capability, right? A strength you have to develop, right? So this, as you do when you practice, then automatically it happens, right? Because one is that you have reduced the stock of your fear, emotion, anything. There was a young lady, she was just become a doctor, and at home, whenever nobody was there, at night, she would be afraid, She went and sat at Vipassana course, and after that, she came back and said she's not afraid. Now she can stay home, because that fear is gone inside, right? So like that, the stories, everybody who says, So your emotions, becomes less overpowering, because one is that your stock of such emotions, fear, anger, is reduced, and second is you become capable of observing it, in a fraction of a second, without, doing intentionally also, automatically it happens, then it doesn't, bother you or upset you so much, so like that. So this is the benefit of this technique.
That's wonderful, because you've explained in such great detail what practical implications of a spiritual practice are, and what people like me, people who are not really from a spiritual field, so to say, can also learn from it. And it was very enlightening to hear that.
It happens automatically.
Right, of course. And it's a permanent change in a person when they go for the course and they come back and they've sort of evolved to see their emotions better, and to see the sensations in their body better, and to observe.
Sense in the sense that that yes, if you you're supposed to, if you have taught how to bathe, for instance, right, And if you said, oh, I learned it, I don't bathe every day, right? You won't get the benefit.
Practice, I guess.
Right?
The practice of it has to be done.
But on the other hand, right? If you have learned to swim, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have not, like, let's say, swam for a long time, and if you're drowning, then that training also will help you, right? All of a sudden, this happened, to my mother-in-law. She had, she had just sat one 10-day course, 7 years ago, and after that, actually my wife and I, we were, in the 30-day course in Igatpuri, and we had got the news that, all of a sudden that she got lung cancer, right? So they say that please come as soon as possible. So, but I asked my wife, she said, no, let us finish the course and go anyway, right? So we went home, there was all kinds of, people were all afraid, and they were all, concerned, and a lot of sorrow, So I also saw that my mother-in-law also like that, So I asked him, asked her that, do you remember how you practice, let us do some Vipassana. I said, I've forgotten, 7 years ago. So let us start practicing, right? So we started practicing, So early morning I will go and sit 1 hour with her. In the evening, my wife will go and sit 1 hour with her. So within a couple of days, slowly mind become concentrated, and she could feel the sensations, all that, Then we used to go for, take her for chemotherapy, right? So whenever, go to the hospital for chemotherapy, so we go there in the evening and, sit 1 hour. In the morning, the day of chemotherapy, 4 o'clock, we, meditate for 1 hour, right? And she take the chemotherapy. So like that, And then, it didn't work, after a couple of months, she passed away, But the surprising thing, the doctor who was treating her, they came and asked me, what is this, that what you do every morning and evening? I said, why? He said, look, generally people, when they took chemotherapy, they have a lot of suffering. It creates them a lot of, difficulties, that side effect. The mother-in-law, she's taking it very calmly, I've never seen anything like that, So I said, well, this is Vipassana. So he got so impressed that the next the Dasai holiday he came and sat the course. Right? So it helps, So whenever you need help, it comes to help you also, right? But you have to practice.
Right. Now, on the spiritual path itself, have you faced any kind of difficulties? Because I also understand for you it must have been a question of balance as an entrepreneur, as somebody who's studied technical sciences a lot, as somebody who is from that field, to get into something so different and so, in a way, different from your world. Did it require you to put in a lot of effort, or was it a struggle for you? What was the journey like?
Main difficulty was to find time.
Right.
A lot of people, businessmen said, oh, how do I get 10 days, right? So I tell them that, look, if you go to a doctor and the doctor says that, look, you have got this illness, right? Now, if you don't go and spend 10 days in the hospital, you are going to die. You will find your 10 days, right? Because you don't want to have that misery, you don't want to have suffering. So I look at it like that also, that by spending this 10 days in Vipassana, I'm able to reduce my misery in life, right? And like that, But always, some difficulties come in. Just before, before my first 30-day course, right? The spinning mill, the workers, they threatened to strike, and the ministers, also saying that, he's going to have this policy and that policy. Everybody says, how can you go away 30 days, in such situation, right? You can't even have a phone call with you. You can't have email, nothing, no contact, right? I said, well, I've decided to go, so let me go. There are other people who take it. Let me see, when I come back. I went and came back after 30 days. Nothing happened, right? Nothing happened. So the forces of, there's a forces of Dhamma, and forces of Mara, right? Opposite side. They try to stop you from good things. But once you decide, and then it helps you, right? So, I've done 60-day course, so people say, oh, 60 days, how will the business go without? But when I go and come back, then it helps, right? So important thing is that you have to make a decision and say that I'm going to do it, and help will come, Dhamma will help you, right?
The universe is going to work its way around, and it's going to happen.
So many instances.
Right.
People who have stopped, who have found that, after 10 days, nothing changed, right? They could have, might as well have gone, right? And those who have gone and said that, okay, when they come out, that, it was not, really no big deal, right?
Right. Let's talk a bit about your journey as an entrepreneur.
Yes.
And in doing all these fabulous projects that you've been doing, there must have been struggles along the way. How do you talk to yourself, and what are the kind of conversations you have within yourself in order to make sense of what is happening around you?
Well, business, main business one side, that I was also involved in this hospital, Grandi International Hospital, right? So I was also, of course, only a 25% shareholder, but I spent nearly quite a few years, 3-4 years, getting that hospital really up. And but there's a lot of mistakes they had done. They had really didn't calculate the investment properly, so there was a lot of shortfalls and this that. So we had to pump in a lot of money. And after the hospital started functioning, there were some disagreements, with the main doctor, who was in charge of the hospital, right? And one of the board meetings, there are a lot of discussions and disagreements and debates and shouting also. So they said, well, get out, So I said, well, okay, I made this hospital, I didn't want any income. It's not for earning anything. I thought it was a good social cause. So I put in also a lot of money, more money than all the banks put together, right? But you say, go, then I'll go. You keep my money and you run the hospital and make it right. So before going, I said that, look, like Buddha says that, if you do a good deed, if you do the result of that will follow you like your shadow, right? So if I've done good things, it'll come later, right? So I came back, let them run the hospital, right? After 6 years, 7 years, they come back to me and say that, please come back, and look after the hospital again, right? So, because I never try to stop the hospital or not try to take revenge or anything like that, because that is a wrong action, right? Like that, so many such situations I see that, I've given people help, right, money, right, and lent them money to come out of some financial difficulties, right? They might not have, responded properly to me, right? But in some of the other ways, my money come back to me, right? So I got help, So like that situation happened, So important thing is that, if you do the right things, important thing is do the right things. And then if the results don't turn out to be right, then you think that, okay, maybe, it's because of your own sankhara, some karma.
So when you talk about your own deeds, just a little point of clarification here. Do you talk about the deeds in this life, or are we talking about, through the course of many lives? Because even Buddhism does believe in reincarnation. So
it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter, right? It doesn't matter. If you believe that you have you're born, so you had in the past also so many lives, so those deeds also. But the deeds of in the present life also matter, right? Because it's the consequences are going to come, right? Because let me see that I give you example, that when you are cleaning clothes, right? Yeah. And then do you try to analyze, okay, this dirt, this was from yesterday, this was from 10 days ago, this was while I was eating, or this thing, impurity is impurity, right? So you want to get rid of it. You just take a piece of a cake of soap and lather it and then rinse it and dry it, right? So this technique helps you get rid of all the past deeds, right? So whenever it comes, it comes, but you can. It's also like like if you have a boil, right, and you can suffer, it'll go by its own, but you can have a surgery and take it out also, right? So this technique is like surgery, taking it out, when you sit 10 days, you get all kinds of aches and pains, right? You can't sit, you can't, So, but that is because all your this sankharas, all their past consequences of past deeds, they are coming out in some way, right? Coming out of suffering. As suffering of by sitting, right? But that way you are able to get rid of it, right? So that particular sankhara, that particular consequence of deed will not come to haunt you in your life later, right? So that's why, because of this technique, you can reduce the misery in life, because you are able to eradicate, you want to take it out, right? Like you might have heard the story of Angulimal, right? Who killed 99 persons, and he was keeping track, by cutting the finger and as a garland, right? Someone who had killed 999 persons in this particular life, he would have spent very terrible, miserable life, right? But out of true vipassana, I got rid of all of it and became arahant, and he got liberated, right? So this is a technique, which really brings results, and result because it can get rid of your suffering, you get rid of your misery in life, but you will not be perfect. Is that you're not so perfect that you have no misery, no anger, no fear, nothing, right? But it will reduce it, right? So whatever it reduces, it'll help you, right? So this is what is
That was wonderful, sir, to hear from somebody who's wearing a suit and a tie, to hear about such a beautiful, such a profound thought on not just Buddhism but also on Vipassana, which is one of the techniques that Lord Buddha taught. Thank you so much for that, sir. It's been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I've learned a lot from you, and I'm confident that so has our audience. Thank you so much for being so graceful with your time, and thank you so much for sharing so many things with us. Thank you.
And I hope that now it got you some idea that maybe this is something I should try.
Not some idea. It's definitely more than some idea. It's a lot of idea. Yes, yes. And I'm confident that this is something that I personally also want to engage in, because of the fact that I have a stressful life sometimes. And if it does help me to control the way and to sort of think about the things happening around me in a different way, why not?
All of us have stress and tension in life, and this is the way to deal with it. Right?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing so much light. Thank you. Thank you. Today's conversation with Dr. Jyoti was very, very insightful for me. I personally learnt a lot about these topics, and I have been curious about spirituality for a while myself. I truly enjoyed the way he gave very easy, very practical day-to-day examples to talk about such profound topics. Also, his personal stories and anecdotes really added to my own understanding of the topic. I am now more curious than ever before to find out more about detachment and also about the value of hard work without expecting results in return. Thank you so much, Dr. Jyoti, not just for your passionate words, but also for enhancing human lives everywhere you go. Thank you, sir.